the day Dad proposed divorce. Mom didn't agree. That night, Dad promptly came to his senses and prepared a lavish dinner to apologize to Mom. Honey, I was momentarily blinded. Will you and Yaya forgive me? Just as I picked up a shrimp from the table, a row of bullet comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. Once this mother and daughter die from their onion allergy, the male lead can smoothly inherit his ex-wife's company and marry his first love from back then. Poor male and female leads, who missed so many years because of a misunderstanding. Fortunately, the ex-wife and daughter will soon be dead, and no one will stand between them anymore. My hand holding the large shrimp noticeably paused. Beside me, Dad was lovingly patting the back of my head. Yeah, why aren't you eating? Dad specially prepared this for you. 1. It's no secret that I inherited Mom's onion allergy. Yet there wasn't a trace of onion in any of the dishes on the table. Just as Mom seemed to soften her stance and picked up her chopsticks to start eating, I suddenly jumped onto the dining table, knocking over a whole spread of dishes, and began rolling around frantically on the table, crying and shouting, No, I saw Daddy kissing an auntie last night. When Dad heard what I said, his face turned pale, and he was just about to explain. Mom stood up angrily, scrutinizing him. Jiang Xinian, is this why you want a divorce, Xiaoyu? The child is just talking nonsense. If you don't believe me, call my mom and ask. I was taking care of her all last night. Dad flusteredly pulled out his phone and put the call on speaker. Grandma's voice quickly came through from the other end. Son, why are you calling me at this time? You and Xiaoyu. Grandma hadn't finished speaking when Dad immediately interrupted. Mom, Xiaoyu doesn't believe I was with you last night, and we're arguing right now. Grandma instantly fell silent. But he quickly laughed. Oh, so that's what it is. Don't worry, Xiaoyu. Xinian has been taking care of me at home all night. I watched as my father visibly relaxed, and my throat tightened slightly. The barrage of comments continued to pour in. The male lead's daughter, how can she be so malicious at such a young age? If it weren't for tonight, the female lead could have returned to the male lead's side. Yes, the male and female leads have loved each other for so many years. Even after the male lead got married, the one he loved most in his heart was still the female lead. Every time late at night when all was quiet, he would miss her so much that he cried. I suddenly remembered a few times when I sneaked out late at night to get snacks and encountered my dad in the living room, completely drunk. His eyes were red, and it seemed like he was calling out the name Xiaowan. At the time, I thought I must have misheard. So the comments just now saying that Dad was secretly meeting Xiaowan at the hotel last night, it's all true. If that's the case, then why did he marry Mom back then? I wanted to rush to the kitchen to look for traces of onions, but I was caught off guard when Mom grabbed me by the collar. Jiang Xinyu, explain what you just said clearly. 2. I was about to look up when a dark figure blocked my path. Dad leaned down with a smile, his voice betraying no emotion. Yeah, children shouldn't tell lies. He didn't get angry, but I could feel chills running down my back. Mom, I'm scared. With a trembling voice, I instinctively buried myself in my mother's arms. She wanted to continue scolding me, but my father stopped her. Forget it, Yaya is still young. As long as she realizes her mistake, that's enough. Before leaving, Dad gave me a deep look, then went into the kitchen and came out carrying a bag of trash. My heart was about to leap out of my throat. I knew that the onion I was looking for must be in there. Dad went out to take out the trash and cleaned up the mess in the dining room. Mom went back to her room and made a phone call to her best friend. I quietly hid outside the door to eavesdrop. She said she wanted to give Dad another chance. But Dad, will things really get better? At night, I carried my quilt straight to Mom's room, wrapped my arms around her waist, and breathed in the calming fragrance. Dad was clearly taken aback when he came out of the shower. A grown daughter should avoid her father. A grown son should avoid his mother. I'm already 12 years old, well past the age where I should be avoiding suspicion. Perhaps because I rarely acted cute, Mom directly asked Dad to move to the guest room to sleep, until the bedroom door closed. The barrage of comments in front of my eyes popped up again. No wonder the male lead doesn't love this ex-wife. Even though the husband is supposed to be the lifelong companion, she always puts her daughter first. Our female lead is different. She always sees the male lead as her pride, warming him like a little son. Who wouldn't love such a female lead? So annoying. When will the male lead's ex-wife and daughter leave the story? Soon, tomorrow. On her way to take her daughter to school, there will be a car accident. My heart skipped a beat. Her face gradually lost its color. Yeah. My mother's worried call echoed in my ears. Mommy, I threw myself into my mother's arms, crying and shedding tears of grievance. How should I tell her about the barrage of comments? Will she believe what I say? Who made our Yaya cry? Tell Mom. Mom gently wiped the tears from my face. I tentatively looked at her and said, Mom, maybe Dad really doesn't love us anymore. As soon as the words were spoken, the smile on Mom's face instantly froze. 3. After a moment, I heard her murmur, Children shouldn't meddle in adult matters, but in tonight's dishes, I smelled the scent of onions. I felt like I was making a desperate struggle, but I watched as Mom's pupils gradually dilated. I know, she believed it. So you spilled the food because of this. Mom's voice carried a barely noticeable tremor. Seeing me nod, she fell silent for a long time. The next morning, as soon as I got up, I saw Dad busy in the dining room, smiling and calling us to eat breakfast. Mom stared blankly at the sandwich on the table, her voice quickly turning cold. No need, I'll just grab something on the way while dropping Yaya off at school. I suddenly remembered the barrage of comments from last night and spoke up anxiously. I don't want Mom to take me to school, I want Dad to take me. I jogged over to Dad and took his hand. Dad, let's go quickly, we're going to be late, under Mom's astonished gaze. I put on my backpack, took Dad's hand, and left, the whole way. Dad didn't say a word to me, only his silent phone beside him. The screen dimmed and lit up again. When we arrived at school and I got out of the car, he suddenly called out to me. I turned back in confusion, and that complicated expression from last night reappeared on his face. Yeah, do you like Grandma? I didn't understand why he asked that. But a wave of panic surged within me. I don't like Grandma at all. Every time I visit her, she secretly calls me a money-losing burden, but when there are outsiders around, she acts as if she dotes on me. But I remember when I was a child, my grandparents never treated me like that. They would always smile and spoil me, saying I was the apple of their eye and deserved to be pampered and indulged. It's just a pity that they passed away one after the other in the past 2 years, in the end. Dad said nothing and drove away, but those annoying bullet comments seemed to be targeting me. The male lead is still too soft-hearted, if you ask me. A thankless daughter like that should have died in a car accident just like her mother. Exactly. The female lead went for her prenatal checkup at the hospital today. They'll soon have their own baby. So I keep the ex-wife's daughter and make the female lead jealous. What does that mean? I clearly didn't let my mother send me off. So how could she still end up in a car accident? I stood at the school gate, crying anxiously. I called my mom using my watch, but it rang for a long time with no answer. For Jiang Xinyu, what are you doing? Not far away, my desk mate Xiaomei got out of her family's car and ran over to me with a smile. I was about to explain when I noticed my mom was calling. Yeah, is something wrong? I let out a heavy sigh, my tone urgent. Mom, don't drive anywhere recently. No matter where you go, don't drive. On the other end of the phone, Mom's voice carried an extra note of sternness. Yeah, have you heard something? I hemmed and hawed, unable to get a word out. After a long pause, Mom sighed. Yeah, focus on your classes and don't worry about me. The phone call ended, and Xiaomei tried to pull me toward the classroom, but I let go of her hand. Xiaomei, please ask the teacher for leave on my behalf. After saying that, I turned around and headed straight out of the school. Where are you going? To catch them in the act, I clenched my fists and walked out of the school angrily. When I turned around, I saw Xiaomei standing behind me. Her eyes were sparkling, and her face was full of excitement. I want to go too. Are you crazy? No one will ask for leave for us. Wouldn't that be skipping class? The school gate in the distance slowly closed. Well, there's no going back now, following the guidance from the bullet comments. I arrived at the hospital where Xiaowan was having her prenatal checkup. However, 2 young girls carrying backpacks were too conspicuous, so as soon as we reached the hospital, we stored our backpacks and then crouched in a corner, waiting for our target to appear, until the outpatient clinic called Xiaowan's name. I finally spotted my father in the crowd of people waiting in line, smiling as he accompanied a woman into the clinic. It was a smile I had never seen on my father's face before, so content, as if he had found a rare treasure. Suppressing the ache in my heart, I raised my watch with its built-in camera, aimed it at the clinic, and took a photo of them embracing. Xinyu, a man's voice suddenly came from behind. I turned around in surprise and realized it was my mother's special assistant, Lingyi. Uncle Ling, what are you doing here? I should be asking you that. Your teacher already called your mother. What? Oh no, so my mom knows too. Xiaomei beside me finally started to panic. She dropped a quick "I'm heading back to school first" and took off running. Lingyi looked at me. Aren't you coming back together? I shook my head, bent down, and continued to keep watch at the outpatient clinic. Lingyi followed my gaze and suddenly understood, squatting down beside me with a gentle voice. Go back, I'll handle things here. I looked at him in surprise as Lingyi raised the camera in his hand and gave a slight nod. 5. On the way back to school, I received a call from my mom. She scolded me harshly, and then I heard her crying from the other end. I remember my mom rarely cried, aside from when my grandparents passed away. This was the first time. She asked me how I knew, but I didn't dare tell her about the barrage of comments and just said I came across it by chance, that afternoon. My mom came to pick me up in a different car. In the car, she played a recording for me. It was the voices of my father and grandmother. Grandmother urged father to get a divorce quickly, saying that Siawan was carrying the Jiang family's boy and should be married improperly. Father's voice was filled with anger as he said that mother refused to agree to the divorce, and since she was unwilling to split half the assets, he would make sure mother died in an accident, leaving all the property to him. Mom silently played another segment. Dad was complaining to grandma about me spilling dinner, but he had a backup plan. As long as mom was driving, there was no escaping it. As the recording ended, I felt a tear drop onto the back of my hand. Looking up, I saw mom's face already streaked with tears. Mom, you still have me. I was pulled into my mother's embrace. She held me tightly, yet her voice was very soft. Yeah, if one day you no longer have a father, would you blame me? I always felt that my mother had already made a decision, though it was never spoken aloud, but I shook my head. I don't blame you. Grandma and Dad were in cahoots. Everyone knew about the woman outside, yet they kept Mom and me in the dark, treating us like fools. The white moonlight. I look at the barrage of comments flooding before my eyes. Holy crap. How do this mother and daughter know about the male lead situation? They installed surveillance cameras. Of course, after so many years of marriage, they treat the male lead like a thief. No wonder they aren't loved. They wouldn't harm the female lead, would they? Please no. The male and female leads have finally resolved their misunderstandings and reunited. This mother and daughter are such jinxes. Why is it so hard to watch a sweet romance? It wasn't until late at night that Dad came back as if nothing had happened. As soon as he got home, he asked where the Bentley that Mom often drove had gone. Mom responded indifferently. I found the fuel tank leaking this morning and have already sent it for repairs. Dad frowned in confusion, forced a fake smile, and walked alone toward the guest room. The comments said that Dad was preserving his chastity for Siawan. How ridiculous. Where was this effort earlier? Over the weekend, I went to my grandmother's house. Siawan was also there. Grandma placed a freshly brewed bowl of chicken soup in front of her and repeatedly urged her to drink more. When she saw me arrive, her expression instantly darkened. 6. What are you doing here, you jinx? Grandma stepped forward to shoo me away but was stopped by Siawan. It's fine. Is this Ainyan's daughter? Siawan smiled and pulled me in front of her, my wrist aching from her tight grip. I felt disgusted just from that distant glance at her that day. Now seeing her up close, it's even more revolting. Auntie, you're so beautiful. I exaggeratedly looked at her, and the smile on Siawan's face grew even wider. I stared at the steaming hot chicken soup on the table and swallowed hard. Grandma, you've never made soup for me before. Can I have a taste? Grandma snorted disdainfully through her nose. This soup was made for my grandson. How dare you, a worthless girl, think you deserve to drink the soup I made? I remained silent. But Siawan waved her hand as if granting a favor. It's fine, let her have a taste. Here, have a spoon, she said, handing one over. Just one sip. Okay, is she trying to bribe me with a sip of chicken soup? I lowered my gaze, placed my hand on the steaming bowl, and replied with a smile. Okay. The next second, I quickly lifted the bowl and splashed the entire contents onto Siawan's stomach, even smashing the ceramic bowl down as well. It was so hot and painful that Siawan instantly screamed and kicked me to the ground. My dear grandson. Grandma rushed over to check Siawan's belly, relieved that the pregnancy wasn't too far along and there was no bleeding. Only then did she relax, turning back with her old face all twisted up. I'll beat you to death, you worthless thing. How dare you touch my grandson? Before I could even get up from the ground, Grandma's slap left my head spinning. Hit her. Beat this wretched girl to death. She's just as vile as her mother. Siawan stood up, leaning on the dining table, one hand on her stomach while the other pointed at me, cursing angrily. I clenched my fist tightly, glaring with hatred at the ugly faces of the two people before me. Grandma's strength grew even greater, and within a few slaps, my face was already swollen, and my mouth was bleeding. My arms and legs were covered in bruises, and there were several cuts from the ceramic fragments. I knew the time had come. Stumbling and scrambling out of Grandma's house, I found two neighbors already peering into the hallway, drawn by the commotion. Just as I reached the doorway, I turned and dropped to my knees before Grandma and Siawan, who were chasing after me. Grandma, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have accused Auntie of seducing Dad and carrying his child. 7. You worthless girl, what nonsense are you shouting? Grandma had just finished scolding when she looked up and saw the group of neighbors around her, suddenly freezing. Chuiying, didn't you say this was your niece from the countryside coming to stay for a while? The old lady who lived closest to Grandma knew the situation and shouted with a face full of excitement, but I didn't give them any time to react, crying and wailing as I went on. Grandma, Auntie, please stop hitting me. I really can't take it anymore. As she spoke, She showed the wounds on her body, with blood still seeping from her arms and legs. I let out a sharp cry and fainted on the ground. In the crowd, I heard someone shout to call the police and dial 120. I pretended to be asleep with my eyes squinted, and before long, I actually fell asleep. When I woke up again, I was lying on a hospital bed. As I looked up, I saw my mother's tear-filled eyes. Yeah, you're awake. Are you feeling unwell anywhere? With my mother's help, I sat up. In the empty hospital room, only my mother's lonely figure was there. Is Dad with that woman? I seemed to be asking Mom, yet also seemed certain. An indescribable sense of grievance washed over me. I should have understood the moment I realized he deliberately put onions in the food. My father abandoned Mom, and he abandoned me too. Jiang Xinhua. Mom looked at me angrily, her eyes filled with disappointment and lingering fear. I told you to focus on your studies and not worry about anything else. Did you just let it go in one ear and not the other? I quickly shook my head and held up my smartwatch, eagerly presenting it to her as if seeking praise. Mom, I recorded the conversation between Grandma and that woman. My classmate's mom is a lawyer, and she said Jiang Xinyan had an affair during the marriage. As long as we have evidence, we can make him leave with nothing. Mom, we have another piece of evidence. Mom was about to continue her outburst, but when her gaze fell on the phone watch, she suddenly covered her face and started crying. The hospital room door was suddenly pushed open. Jiang Xinyan walked in, his gaze sweeping over the hospital bed with disgust before finally settling on my mother. Look at the fine daughter you've raised. Jiang Xinhua, come with me to the police station. You need to explain to the police how you falsely accused Grandma and Xiaowan of hitting you. Ignoring my injuries, my father came over and pulled me off the hospital bed. My legs gave way and I couldn't steady myself, my whole body collapsing to the ground. Mom rushed over anxiously, pushed him aside, and carefully helped me back to the hospital bed. Her originally fair cheeks were now flushed bright red with anger. Jiang Xinyan, your mother and that woman beat Yaya like this. Do you really think I'll let them get away with it? 8. What do you mean? I told you there's nothing between me and Xiaowan. Dad was still making excuses. So annoying. The male lead's daughter is truly young and vicious. She should have choked to death from an onion allergy long ago. I really don't want to watch this mother-daughter pair anymore. They've caused the female lead to show signs of miscarriage and still won't let her go. The male and female leads are the original couple. I don't know what a cannonball ex-wife has to be so arrogant about. I lowered my gaze. What a pity. I still have to watch that white moonlight show off. These bullet comments are giving me a headache. They don't sound like something a normal person would say. Even the students in our class know that only those who have obtained a marriage certificate are legally recognized as the original spouse. Dad wanted to say something more, but Mom had already chased him out of the hospital room. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Dad brought Grandma and Xiaowan to see me. According to Mom, Dad, taking advantage of being my legal guardian, submitted a letter of forgiveness from me to the police, along with Xiaowan's medical report indicating signs of a miscarriage. Combined with Grandma's testimony, it was proven that I had initiated the attack on Xiaowan, and they had only accidentally injured me in self-defense. They were only given a verbal warning at the police station before leaving. Xiaowan, you're so well-behaved and sensible. I don't know what I did to deserve such a daughter-in-law and granddaughter. When Dad was seeing Grandma Xiaowan off, the old lady suddenly hugged Xiaowan and sighed with a sarcastic tone. The two were so intimate, as if they were the real mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Before getting in the car, Dad glanced at Mom without any explanation and left directly. This wasn't a visit to see me. It was clearly about flaunting his power in front of Mom. Look, I beat your daughter black and blue, and there's still nothing you can do about it. I tightened my grip on Mom's hand, the warmth transferring to her cold palm. Mom lowered her head, smiled, and ruffled my hair. Don't worry, Mom doesn't mind anymore. Dad came back in the evening, but he was packing his bags. He said Grandma was frightened after being taken to the police station this time, and he needed to go stay with her for a while to keep her company. Mom said nothing. Just waited until he left, then packed up all the other items that belonged to Dad and threw them out. She then changed the door lock password. The next day, when Dad rushed to the company, he was completely dumbfounded. His original position as vice president had been taken over by a professional manager. Earlier, his projects had been taken over one by his mother while he had been busy accompanying Xiaowan these past few days. His father stormed into his mother's office angrily to confront her, only to receive the news that he had been fired. 9. Jiang Xinyan, I had no idea until I looked into it. You've been running another company on the side all these years, using my Chiao Corporation's projects to feed your shell company. Did you really think I was some naive flower in a greenhouse? His mother sneered as she walked up to him, throwing the terminated projects at him. Dad looked in despair at the projects scattered all over the floor. They were the security he and Xiaowan had after marriage. That was what he had prepared for his own son. He never expected that despite keeping this matter so deeply hidden, Xiaoyu still managed to uncover it. He laughed bitterly in extreme anger. Xiaoyu, I always knew you never lived up to me all these years. Do you think I don't know? Back then, your parents looked down on me, calling me a phoenix man behind my back. I've had enough of your family's hypocritical attitude all these years. If you ask me, your parents died so early, they deserved it. He was cursing with such satisfaction that his face was completely contorted. Mom watched coldly as the man revealed his true ugly nature. Back then, she had married him even though he had no bride price, no marital home, no savings, nothing at all. She had even refrained from saying he was marrying into her family just to save his pride. Even so, he could still harbor such hatred for his own family. In that case, let's get a divorce. Jiang Xinian, since you committed adultery during the marriage, you won't get anything. Divorce? Dad seemed to have heard the biggest joke. Want a divorce now? It's too late. Xiaoyu, let me tell you, even if it means dragging it out, I'll drag you to death. He stormed out, slamming the door, and only realized the passcode had been changed when he got home. He immediately contacted a locksmith, obtained a certificate from the property management, and the door was quickly opened. The room was emptier than when he had left. After a careful look, he realized that all his belongings were gone. On the coffee table in the living room, a Bentley car key was placed. Was the car repaired? Just sell it and use the money to support Xiaowan during her pregnancy. 10. While I was in class, the barrage kept trembling. It was a situation I had never seen before. Each comment in the barrage seemed to go crazy, continuously pouring out. What does this mean? Did the male lead die? What kind of international joke is this? We were promised a pure love story after a long separation, but the male lead died before even getting divorced. What is the female lead supposed to do now? It's all because this mother-daughter pair is too vicious, going out of their way to create obstacles for the male and female leads. How despicable. If only that mother-daughter pair had died from an allergic reaction back then, the male and female leads would be living happily ever after by now. This time, my attention wasn't on the harsh comments in the bullet chat. Dad died. I can't quite describe the feeling in my heart. Back when I found out he had cheated and even tried to harm my mother and me, I did hate him and wished for his death. But when this day actually came, my deskmate Xiaomei lowered her voice and glanced at me secretly. Jiang Xinyu, why are you crying? I shook my head and didn't explain anything. In the afternoon, my mom rushed to the school and, instead of taking me home, took me directly to the hospital morgue. She said I've grown up now, and it's time to see my father one last time. Grandma had already arrived with Xiaowan, wailing and pounding on the person on the stretcher. The name tag bearing Jiang Xinyan's name kept trembling. Xiaowan, while crying, suddenly pointed at my mother with reddened eyes and shouted, "Officer, it must be her. Anyan has always been a careful driver. How could he have died in a car accident? She must have killed Anyan." The elderly lady, who had been crying, seemed to recall something as well. "That's right, officer, I want to report her. This vicious woman must have killed my son. Arrest her and execute her immediately. Enough. Stop making a scene, let's wait for the investigation results before jumping to conclusions." The old policeman finished speaking, glanced at the caller ID, and walked out. When he returned, his gaze had become even sharper. "You can go back first. We'll notify you as soon as the investigation results come out." Grandma, supported by Xiaowan, laughed and spat fiercely as she passed by us. "I told you, you're nothing but bad luck. A jinx, you're the death of my son. And I won't let you get away with it." 11. When we got home, Mom was completely devastated. She stared blankly at the empty coffee table. "I'm really worried about Mom's condition. This mother and daughter are so disgusting. Stop pretending. Why didn't they die instead? Without the male lead, how can the female lead survive? After waiting for so many years, when things were finally about to get better, it was all ruined by this mother and daughter." The barrage comments kept insulting me and my mother, and the language was getting increasingly harsh. I wanted to argue back, but they couldn't hear my voice at all. Suddenly, those bullet comments seemed to have encountered something terrifying and began trembling again. What's going on? I don't know. I feel so uncomfortable. Help, I can't breathe. Hashtag at you and hashtag %%. The barrage fell into garbled text, and it wasn't until a few minutes later that it gradually returned to normal. I was suffocating. Hu-Han-san, have finally returned. Brothers, the enemy team has been wiped out this round. God knows how painful it is to see those fake human comments every day and not be able to speak up. It's okay now. It's okay, the antivirus software has completely wiped them out. I watched for a long time before I understood their conversation, so all those previous comments were sent by virus-infected AI fakes. And now these comments are from real people. Xiao Yeye. You're right in your thoughts. I covered my mouth in shock. I clearly didn't say anything out loud. Yeah, we can hear your inner thoughts. Your father and Xiaowan are not the main characters at all. This is all just an AI fantasy. That's right. They were simply immoral cheaters, even going so far as to cruelly attempt to harm their wife and daughter multiple times. Their current fate is entirely their own doing. So you don't need to feel any guilt. I nodded gratefully. Thank you. Remember to call us brother and sister. Thank you, brothers and sisters. The barrage of comments was once again filled with whimpers. The next morning, Mom looked as usual and returned to her usual strong woman image. It wasn't until 3 days later that the police called us and Grandma to the station. The investigation results were out. The reason Jiang Xinian was in a car accident was because the brake pads of the car were loose. The reason the brake pads became loose was because Jiang Xinian tampered with them himself. The surveillance camera captured the entire process of his actions, but he never expected that he would end up being the one driving the car. Grandma collapsed in shock at the police station, and Xiaowan called out to us several times, but neither my mother nor I turned back to help. 12. A month later, I changed my surname on the household register to my mother's last name. The Qiao Group has been thriving during this period, and the resources Jiang Xinian had diverted to the shell company were also reclaimed by my mother. After school on Friday, I waited for my mother at the school gate. Suddenly, a barrage of comments popped up. Yeah, run fast. Your grandma has sent someone to tie you up. Hurry and go. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late. She wants to catch you to extort a ransom from your mom. I was startled and ran forward with my backpack on. Yeah. This isn't the way home, I know. I responded urgently, and suddenly a van without a license plate turned out from the alley behind me. I ran forward desperately, watching as the destination got closer and closer. Uncle, I shouted loudly towards the guard booth at the entrance. Just as I called out once, the van door behind me opened, and a pair of large hands grabbed me by the waist and quickly pulled me into the vehicle. Through the car window, I saw my uncle in a police uniform chasing after us, constantly speaking into his walkie-talkie. Damn girl, she actually led us right to the police station entrance. The man slapped me, and I clearly saw his face. This is Xiaowan's younger brother, Xiaoyu. Yeah, you need to be careful. He was just released from prison. Stop scolding. Let's escape from these police first. The man driving spat and through the rearview mirror, I saw a long scar on his forehead that extended to his eyebrow bone. The police cars behind were in hot pursuit, their sirens blaring across the sky. The two men in the van furrowed their brows more and more deeply. Uncle, it looks like it's going to be hard to escape. Shut up. Xiaoyu swung a slap at me, but I dodged by tilting my head. Just as he was about to get angry, I shouted to the man driving in front, Uncle Scarface, if you let me go, I can tell the police that you were just picking me up from school. The car slowly decelerated as the man fell into hesitation. Don't listen to her. This wretched girl is full of schemes. Her mother has a lot of money. Don't you want it anymore? Xiaoyu roared. I ignored him and continued to stare at the scar-faced man ahead. Uncle Scar, don't let yourself be used as a pawn. His sister was my father's mistress. He just wants to settle a personal vendetta. Don't end up in prison again without even getting the money. The car screeched to a halt. Before anyone could get out, they were already surrounded by police cars. How did you know I'm Xiaowan's brother? How did you know we just got out of prison? Tell me. Outside the car, the police had already picked up a megaphone and were issuing warnings, but inside the car, Xiaoyu gradually began to break down. He thought this kidnapping had been carried out without anyone noticing. I raised an innocent, smiling face, because Grandma told me she wanted to protect Xiaowan's child. Knowing you wouldn't stay quiet after getting out of prison, she used me to lure you in. Both you and I are her pawns. She doesn't care which one of us gets sacrificed. 13. Damn it, Xiaoyu, you screwed me over. The man with the scar, upon hearing this, anxiously jumped out of the car, raised his hands, and walked toward the police. I don't know anything. I was just deceived by a friend. I'm willing to cooperate with the police investigation. I looked at the man in front of me. Uncle Xia, look, he's already fine. As long as you pin everything on my grandmother, you can be safe too. You would be so kind. Xiaoyu sneered. Of course, because I also hate my grandmother. The police began issuing warnings again. I saw outside the car window that my mother was anxiously trying to rush over but was stopped by the police. Xiaoyu's expression softened slightly as he grabbed me and got out of the car, until I was almost next to the police. I started crying in a panicked voice, Uncle Policeman, he's going to kill me. Xiaoyu stared at me in shock, and before he could react, his arms were firmly grabbed and he was taken to the police station. Later, I heard that Xiaoyu confessed in prison that it was my grandmother who hired them to kidnap me. When Grandma was taken to the police station, she still looked defiant. cursing the police inside for being blind. It wasn't until the verdict was announced that Grandma was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Siawan, with her pregnant belly, came to beg Mom to write a letter of forgiveness, but Mom directly had the security guards drag her out. With the entire process monitored and recorded, we thought she would give up. But the next day she brought a bunch of reporters to block the entrance of Mom's company every day. She brazenly demanded that her mother share the property with her. She claimed that the child she was carrying was Jiang Xinyan's. According to the law, illegitimate children also have the right to inherit. Why should they be driven out of the house? Mother and child. Mother just calmly watched the group of people, telling Xiaowan to present the paternity test report, but the child hadn't been born yet, and Jiang Xinyan had long been cremated. Where could a paternity test come from? The media gradually dispersed. Only Xiaowan was unwilling to give up, coming alone to the company entrance every day to cause a scene. Every time she came, she was chased away by security, until the day she gave birth. The hospital couldn't reach any emergency contacts, so they contacted my mother. 14. Xiaowan gave birth to a stillborn baby. It was said that her emotional fluctuations during pregnancy were too severe, and coupled with the baby's oxygen deprivation during delivery, they couldn't save it. After Xiaowan woke up, she had an emotional breakdown and jumped from the hospital rooftop. When I visited my grandmother in prison, I told her the news. The old lady was stunned for a long time, shaking her head in denial. After a while, impossible, my eldest grandson must still be alive. I have a grandson. I'm not just a barren woman who only gives birth to daughters. I have a grandson, a grandson. Grandma seemed to have gone mad, muttering about her grandson all day in prison, disturbing her cellmate's sleep. After being beaten several times, the warden found Mom. Finally, after some discussion, we sent Grandma to a mental hospital. On my birthday, my mom bought me a big cake. She even cooked a dinner herself, which was more sumptuous than the one Dad used to make. In the evening, Mom had a few drinks and looked at me with guilt. Yeah, forgive your mother for being selfish. Perhaps if I hadn't let your father drive that Bentley back then, he could still be with you. I suddenly hugged my mother, gently whispering in her ear, this is our shared secret. My mom and I exchanged a smile. I knew we wouldn't bring this up again in the future. Happy birthday, Xiao Xinyu. It's time for us to go. As rows of bullet comments floated before my eyes, I sniffled. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.